I'll talk about Scrooges. Those big banks that got billions of bailout bucks to lend to us, well, they're still not lending to us. And this week, they said they don't even want to tell us how they're spending it. Is it time to tell the banks we want a bailout refund? Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Keenan, and welcome to Cashin In. Our Cashin In crew this week, the guys are here. Wayne Rogers, Jonathan Hoeting, and Jonas Max Ferris, along with Democratic strategist Tanya Aker, Tracy Burns, and JBL will be back next week. And welcome, everybody. Happy holidays. Wayne, is it time for the banks to refund our bailout bucks?
Oh, you bet. Let me tell you something. This is an outrageous thing that is going on down there. I mean, when he went down there with that page and a half or 2 pages or whatever it was and asked for this money,
the Treasury
and the
Secretary
Congress
Paulson
gave it to him. Yeah, Secretary Paulson, what an idiot. And the Congress, even more idiotically, gives it to him without any accounting whatsoever. The public is paying for this. We should get that money back. You're right. And by the way, I want everybody listening to this show, write your congressman, call them on the phone, march on Washington. I mean, if they could do it for civil rights, you can do it for your own money because the government is stealing your money. It's exactly what's going on. They should be giving it back. Imagine that some of these banks, when asked for this accounting, said, we're not going to disclose that. We refuse to disclose that. Outrageous.
It is outrageous. Jonathan, would refunding these bailout bucks do anything to make this crisis better or worse?
Well, Terry, I think it would create, unfortunately, even more havoc. I mean, they can't give it back. A lot of that money is already spent. It's already been invested. It's gone. I don't think the answer is to ask for a bailout refund. The answer is, I think to Wayne's point, no more bailouts, okay? Not for banks, not for insurance companies, not for homeowners, not for anybody. But to try to get that money back now, try to get that $350 billion back, I think would create even more havoc, even more distortion in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to get the profits back for the people who've made money with Bernie Madoff. Tanya, you know, this was a bipartisan effort. Both sides voted for this bailout, yet there seems to be no accountability right now. Taxpayers are angry.
Both sides not only voted for the bailout, but both sides voted for a bailout in which there were absolutely no standards for how this money was going to be used, no standards for accountability, no process for making sure that the money achieved the goals for which it was intended. I mean, good God, my parents put more standards, you know, on my childhood allowance than we put on these guys and getting these funds. And so absolutely. Now, I don't know that it's feasible to get a bailout refund, but what is feasible is that before we release the second half of the $700 billion that we promised these guys, they have got to be accountable to us. And there has to be a process in place for ensuring that these funds are used in the manner in which they were intended.
How do you know that, wait a minute, how do you know that it's not feasible to get it back if they haven't accounted for it? They may be hoarding it. A lot of them are using it for, yes, I'm serious, absolutely serious. You don't know that. They should give it back.
And a lot of it's going to go out in bonuses. You know, even though the top executives might not be taking the bonuses, Jonas, a lot of bond traders and other people are going to get multi-million-dollar bonuses this year.
Yeah, I don't understand. Who thought the banks could just take this money and make these loans anyway? The banks were failing. Banks like Citigroup wouldn't exist right now without this money. They don't just like, oh, here's some money, go lend it. If the government wanted to lend money to people, they should start their own bank. This is a private investment in the banking industry, which was failing and would have failed without this money. You can't just tell them to make loans. That's like, you know, that's more kind of government Fannie Mae type stuff. Let's make a passive investment in the banks, keep them alive, and make some money as taxpayers. I don't really care what they do with the money, as long as we own a stake in that bank and will profit as taxpayers.
Yeah, Jonathan, you know, Jonas has a point. A lot of this money went to plugging holes in the balance sheet, basically sopping up the huge mistakes from the last decade. And these banks would be out of business without this money.
Well, Terry, a lot of the banks should be out of business. And, you know, we've talked about this for, you know, it's going back to Bear Stearns right now. The role of government is not to prop up failing financial institutions.
Yet the only thing they didn't prop up, which was Lehman Brothers, everyone's saying, oh my God, that's what ruined 2008 for every investor.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, I don't think the problem with the bailouts, Terry, was that there wasn't enough oversight. The problem with the bailouts is the bailouts. So, you know, Tanya, you mentioned before we release the second $350 billion, how about not releasing the second $350 billion? How about stopping this bailout culture that says to people, whether it be homeowners or banks, if you fail, you get bailed out by your rich Uncle Sam. That's the philosophical problem here.
Yeah, but Wayne, I mean, is there any way that this extra $350 billion, son of TARP, whatever you want to call it, isn't going to get spent in 2009?
No, because the Congress is irresponsible. They are totally irresponsible. They're like children. They were panicked into this by voting for it in some stupid way without asking for accounting, without asking for this. And there's another point here. There's 10,800 banks in the United States. Only 18 of those have failed so far this year. So it is the big banks. This is the too big to fail syndrome that the government has gotten itself into. If these banks weren't so big, if it weren't Citibank, if it weren't Chase, and if it weren't all of these big banks that win these multifarious businesses, they wouldn't be bailed out. Little banks are not getting bailed out. And by the way, little banks are not failing. The community banks are surviving and doing very well. This is a government setup when they abandoned Glass-Steagall, and it's outrageous, and people should write every congressman and get them out of office.
Because it's a Wall Street bailout, really, not a banking bailout. We should be clear about that. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks, everybody. Well, coming up next, it was the biggest investment.